You guys, it's Tiana Adeje. I'm here with Keenan and Maurisa, and we are actually going to talk about the barriers against a relationship. And the questions that I have for them are pretty simple, straightforward, but I just wanted to thank them first and foremost for being guests on my show. And I've known both of them for quite some time now, and just to have this conversation, hopefully we'll be able to shed light on the different barriers that are happening in different relationships. So I'm gonna go ahead and get it started with this first question is, what are the barriers you notice men or women may have against relationships? And either one of you can start, and if you could speak from your own perspective according to your gender.
Ladies first, or do you want me to jump in there?
It's up to her.
Yeah.
I'll go ahead and go. Ladies first. Okay. So that's kind of going to give like a introduction to my explanation or my answer, right? So being a independent woman, a full-time mother, full-time student, full-time employee, one of the boundaries that I come across and I hear so often is that women are too independent nowadays, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to relationships, I myself find myself asking the question, my peers ask the same questions to me. We talk about it like, what does the man offer nowadays? When you are already an established woman, I think the roles have kind of the lines have kind of blurred, and for I guess the male versus female roles in everything, and there's some benefits to it, but there are also some cons and some negatives to it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the biggest boundaries that I see.
Okay. So it's the independence you saying? Is that was yours?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
I'm gonna say the independence. Yeah.
Okay. What about you, Kenny?
Okay. So as from the male perspective, I'm gonna just dig into what you said a little bit, because other cultures of women are also independent and successful, and they still find a need for their men, right? So I think that's something that it's not like gonna community build if we continue down that road. Okay, so some of the barriers that I see for some relationships are bringing childhood trauma and not having therapy to fix some of those issues.
Mm-hmm.
Bringing other relationship issues into where you've been imprinted with other people and how they act and how toxic some situations are, and you bring that to your next situation. Sometimes children, because a lot of our men and women are single parents. So then raising your kids comes into the situation where I already have kids. Well, men want legacy, So if you already got 2, 3, 4, 5 kids by different men or the same man, been divorced, whatever, like it's kind of like, okay, what do you bring to the table? Also, if you're not inspired, you're not feminine with your energy, you're not helping move me to the next level, you're working on your own career, what are we really doing? And lastly, just the men are feminized in a lot of ways because they were raised in certain types of households. And so our problem is some of us weren't trained how to be men. We don't know how to be men. My mom, who was a single mother who raised me, I'm sitting in the back of my uncle's car with my legs closed like a woman. And my uncle turned around and said, "Get your knees out my back. That's not how boys supposed to sit anyway. You're supposed to sit with your legs open because that's how we're supposed to sit." Mm-hmm. A woman couldn't tell a young man that because she was taught to sit with her legs closed. So there's benefit to having men around, or a man in the house, teach young men how to be men. And also, I'm a girl dad too. I have a daughter, and I had to teach her how I'm supposed to treat her. I open doors for her. I don't try to raise my voice. I'm not abusive towards her and different things of that nature. And I work hard. And I try to spoil her because, that's part of my role as a dad, but also how a man, in my view, should treat my daughter because I value her. So that's kind of my take on some of the barriers.
Okay. So y'all are looking at, being in me and Maurisa's cases is that we have children, but yet we still desire relationships. So you're just saying from a male's perspective, it just depends on what we have going on with our careers and how established we have become, and to see where you guys, I guess, quote unquote, fit in a sense. Is that what you're saying, Keenan?
I mean, my thing is, if everybody else can fit man into their life and be able to get along, why can't our culture? That's what I'm saying, because we have the lowest marriage rate, probably historically, a very high divorce rate, and it's in our culture. There's some toxicness in between us that we need to work through, that maybe started off from something else outside of us, but right now it's within us. Our women don't value the men. Men don't value the women. Why have we lost our value? Because if you look at the 1940s, 50s, 60s, maybe even 70s, we were a home. We had men and women in the house. We did stuff together. And now because there's so much independent, or whatever you want to call it, they're making more money, there's no value outside of finance. And we bring a lot to the table as men. And we also, we bring structure, we bring security, bring masculine energy, to the table. And I know a lot of our women are in their masculine energy, so they feel like they have to play the mom and the dad. That's why on Father's Day, I'm the man and the dad. But on Mother's Day, dudes don't be like, I'm the mother and the father. That's something specifically to females, which is crazy.
So it's a form of what the culture brings and what how we have carried on those things that we have seen throughout our own households. Because if we were in the absent father home, then we act according to that. And even if we were in the double parent home, like father and mother, then it's kind of some things that as a child the person was looking at and trying to see what to take from it or what to just exclude as they got older. So then I think we all still, a lot of us still desire the whole family setting, regardless of what we went through. Because I can say that even though I was raised in a single mother home, I still desire the whole family. The father, the mother, the children. And I'm not sure if y'all can speak on that case too. Like, would you say a lot of things reflect on what your upbringing was?
I want to touch on something really quick. First of all, I agree with what he's saying. I just want to kind of dig into the behind it, the why of it. So marriages did last a lot longer, and I know we both have been married before, Tiana. So he's correct, and marriages did last longer. But what people are missing when they make that statement, or what they leave out, is that women of those times dealt with outside children. They dealt with abuse physically and mentally. They dealt with they had lack of education. There weren't really jobs at that time for women. So they had no choice but to stay. And what we're finding now is that women now have a choice in staying in abusive relationships or dealing with infidelity. So the woman is coming to the table with more now, and she's asking that the man come to the table with more as well. You can't really make a woman in 2023 stay who values loyalty, who values healthy communication, those things. That's how this toxicity was passed down from generation to generation. So now we have these more feminine men, and we have these more independent women because they watched their parents be abused for years, and they said that will not be me. So as the woman is evolving, the man is supposed to be evolving with us, before us, to lead us, because a woman who has actually done her therapy, has gone through all that, and I'm actually studying that in my master's program. A woman who has gone through that, her healing processes, whatever from the previous generations, what they've done, she's going to want her husband to lead properly in that same light, him to be healed as well.
And I would say, too, with what you're saying and even with what he has said as far as this whole trauma thing, because I know you mentioned about the abuse and mentioned the woman having to stay or having no other choice but to stay, and also being the housewife, because, of course, marriages lasted then. And like Keenan was asking, is the why, or how were they able to last longer than we are in this day and age, and what the difference has been. Because if we were to go back in time and see how that process went about, there were forced marriages that I guess the woman or the male felt like they couldn't break away. And then there were others who, dealt with the whole racial thing and not wanting to mix cultures. So it was that barrier. So it's like you want to love somebody regardless of their skin tone, but yet how do you get past what other people are hindering you from, which is true love? Because I think that kind of forced a lot of people to stay within their culture. And so usually as us in this shade, when we feel forced to do something, there's so much opposition. And I think that may be something that could be a barrier, is when you feel forced to do something that you genuinely wanted to just embrace on your own and desire as time went along. So I would say that I wasn't really shown that that was an option for me growing up, to be married. But yet to have a relationship, it was kind of in between, because I saw the likeness in others as my siblings, or even maybe with my mom or other people that I saw, wanting to be in a relationship with other people. But did those last long? No, because we change who we like as we grow too. Because it was one thing that we may like at that time, and then as we go older. But I'm going to try to transition into this next question just to see what you guys think. As far as those things that we may limit ourselves from, or we see in the relationships and what we want or desire, could those be considered the barriers? And should we lower them? Should we raise them? Should we keep them the same?
Well, for me, right? And I understand about, things how they were back in the day. I don't believe everybody was abusive and all that kind of stuff. Some people loved each other and it worked. Right. And I don't think it was all the man's fault, because it seems like there's a lot of man shaming, like, oh, y'all were abusive, y'all got side babies, y'all doing all these things, but there was no accountability for what the woman was doing.
Right.
There's other ways. There's mental abuse, there's physical abuse, there's emotional abuse, and women got slick mouths out here now. Look at 2023. As far as the barriers and stuff are concerned, like, if I work hard all day and I come home, I want peace in my house.
Right.
I'm not trying to be arguing with somebody belittling me because they make more money than me. Maybe I'm a garbage man or a school teacher and I make, $50,000 a year and she makes 80. I don't need her to tell me that all the time.
Right.
And that's one of the things that has adjusted as far as the barriers. I don't think we should lower that bar as men to allow or anybody else, even other men, to talk to us any kind of way, to belittle us and make us feel less than a man because we make less money. Right. Because money, like Bob Marley said, is infinite. If you're chasing money, you're always going to be chasing something because it doesn't end. But if you're looking for a strong leader in your household, somebody that has the values to raise the kids, somebody that is a protector and a provider, then we have a lot of men out here that are single and that are ready to get in those relationships. But our women are saying no, not to the people that are whooping on them, because we don't want that, not to the people that's cussing them out. We're not talking about those guys, so we can exclude those. Mm-hmm. But to the good men, middle of the line wage earners, they're telling them no because you don't make enough money, so we're moving on. So no, I don't think that we should allow that, and we should not lower our standards and break down our barriers, because there's a lot of women outside of just black women that are available to us, that want just a good man, period. And I'm a person that dates black women. I love black women, but I also have been in relationships with them, and some of them are great, right? But then some you're gonna get some other type of actions.
Mm-hmm. Maurisa, did you have anything before I jump on that?
Well, I agree with him. women should not disrespect their man. I don't believe that it's appropriate for the woman to ever belittle her man, right? That's really like why God gave, I believe in God. I believe God gave woman to the man was to be his helpmate, and that means his emotional support. Nowadays, I think it requires financial support because I believe it takes two incomes, right? So in every aspect, I think she's supposed to be the support to her man. But I think that goes both ways, the respect. For me, I have never disregarded a good man who, just because he makes less, it's always been something else with it.
Yeah.
But I don't think that should be a determining factor. If and I don't believe it would be a determining factor for a good woman. And I think at the root of it, everybody's finding their way to their person. So a good woman eventually is going to end up with a good man. But before they get there, they're going to run through some bad situations. Just like he said, he's dated a few black women who were good. He's dated a few that were bad. So we can't categorize all black men are this or all black women are this. And I think that's where, like you said, the community is failing. We are categorizing and tearing down our people as a whole. And so we're failing as a whole.
And possibly seeing it more as a competition rather than a partnership, because if you're doing all this, comparing, at the end of the day, it's like, okay, what are we even doing together? Like, I can compete with anybody else in the workplace. I can compete with somebody else, maybe in the family or whatever. But when it comes to actual love is not about comparison. Love is about, that compatibility instead. And so I think even in school, we learned about comparing and contrasting. We learned how to see what works together and what don't. If y'all don't gel together, then y'all might as well find that equal part somewhere else. So I agree with both of you all.
A lot of times, the people that's affected the most are the children.
Correct.
Because it may become way later that you figure out that you made a bad decision in who you chose to have that kid with, and now you got a kid running around, and the mom and the dad don't get along. So one is talking bad about the other one is, because women have more power when it comes to custody in the court of law. So they're primary, most of the time, I'm not saying it's a monolith, but most of the time they have the power as far as that's concerned. And they control the narrative a lot of times. So I've had to, as a good father, my daughter's in the house right now. I've had to fight through the narrative of a lot of things and just be consistent. But I feel like people make bad decisions all the time, and if you keep making the same bad decision over and over and over, and you're picking the same type of girl, the same type of guy, sometimes that self-accountability has to step into place and say, look, I'm wrong. I'm doing something wrong. And to do some self-work instead of always blaming other people and saying it's somebody else versus doing some internal looking.
Yep, because and I hear it a lot too, or I've heard it before, you are what you attract. So if you're that type of person that's bitter, if you're that type of person that's always downing yourself or whatever, you tend to attract those kind of people. And if you want someone to treat you better, do better by treating yourself better first. And of course, it always involves self-love and self-care first. And as that goes, even though we have these standards, the next question is the deal breakers. I've heard that quite a bit too. What are your deal breakers? What is this? What is that? Where can we meet in between? Like, is that even possible to try to have a deal breaker or meet someone in between if you see a lot of things that are of the bad or red flag signs?
For me, like, deal breakers that come to my immediate thought are cheating and abuse. So no, those are not negotiable for me. And I say that because I'm giving those things, right? I'm being loyal to you. I am not going to abuse you, whether it be verbally, talking down to you, or whether it be physical, me, being emotional and all off and hit you. I'm not going to do those things to you. So that's kind of my rule of thumb now when it comes to dating is whatever I'm offering you, I think it's more than fair to expect that back. And for me, that doesn't include like a dollar amount, my income. I'm not talking about income. I'm talking about the things that I can't do on my own, whether it be emotional support or protecting and leading in the household, like those things that God did not design me to do on my own. Are you going to come to the table with that? Yeah. But that's what I consider deal breakers.
And for me, as far as deal breakers, is allowing yourself to be in your feminine energy and be led. Because a lot of times people come with so much scar tissue around their heart that they're not able to let someone that is doing the right things or has the right heart, they might consider them soft or something like that. I've had women say, well, if you don't abuse me or yell at me or talk to me, then they look at it as less masculine because I don't want to argue and be aggressive towards you, because that's how you treat other men. That's how I treat other men when we're in a quarrel. We can fight, we can be physical, we can raise our voices because that's how lions do. But when I'm talking to my woman, I don't want to have to talk to her that way. I don't want to do that. So one of my things is energy is really big for me as far as deal breakers. And I don't want to get off work and come argue. I don't want to feel like adversary. I want to feel like we're a team, we're a partnership. And like I've noticed that when women yell, I shut down and I don't want to deal with it. I want to walk away. I want to, get away from this person when it comes to something. Now, if I did something, okay, maybe. But when I talk to like my aunties or my mothers and they talk to me and they say, hey, baby, listen, I understand you feel this way, but how about this? And they talk to me with kindness and love. And I was watching Van Zandt, I think that's her name. And one lady was talking and screaming and yelling at him. And then she went and said the same thing in a loving way and got a way better result. And I just think for me, I got to protect my energy and then my children's energy, because I don't want them to have to deal with somebody screaming at them, because then they internalize that and go put that out into the world. And there's definitely targets on our backs. So we need to be able to control our emotions in social situations as well. True.
I can't pinpoint what a deal breaker would be for me, because I'm one, and I know it may be a foreign term for me, even though I've heard it several times before. I always had the optimistic point of view of a relationship and just seeing where we meet in between, or how we support one another. And I know one thing that stood out is the children, because we all three of us have children, and to feel as if having a solid relationship is not possible, then it's like, because of the child, then it makes me wonder, what is there left to offer and what we desire in a relationship. So I'm kind of silent on that question, even though I ask you guys, because I'm still trying to understand the term myself, because when I first heard it, it was like a deal breaker. Like, are we breaking the standards that we have, or are we trying to compromise with what you trying to bring to the table? So I'm just going to slide on into this last one, which is actually asking you guys if you have any questions that you would like to ask one another, or just out in the open that we may be able to answer or add a little bit of advice or whatnot to.
Some of my questions are, as a successful, independent woman, why is it so hard to see the value outside of finances? Because I hear a lot of people say, well, if you don't got no money, don't talk to me. You're a scrub, all these type of things. And even if they do got money, they don't have enough money. Or, they say nice guys finish last. Why is it that everybody through their youth, like let's say 15 to like 27, they want the bad boy, they want the thug, they want the dude with the grill that's got the whatever, that's excited. They want the exciting life. And then after they've been run through, maybe got kids by these people, or, you know, had all these sexual experiences and been imprinted on and different things of that nature. Then they want to come to their senses, so to speak, and say, well, let me go get this high value man that's making all this money to take care of me because that's what I deserve. And I just feel like that's backwards. Why don't you start off like other cultures? Because I see a lot of cultures, they're getting married much younger and staying together because they have way less sexual experience. They don't have a lot of, you know, all these kids and stuff out of wedlock, and they're just more, they grow together. So you don't start off with your maximum of money. You start off growing together, making fun so that you can, you know, grow that together. So that's just kind of what I'm seeing, and that's my question.
I would probably say it's what we are shown a lot. Like, you have some girls who are daddy's girl, and daddy's always pulling out money at the drop of a hat just to make sure daughter has everything she needs. And that expectation is there too, from the male that she may be attracted to. That's one type. And then there is others who are just wanting to see what that quote unquote lavish life is like, to have everything and want for nothing, but yet somewhere you're gonna want for something, and it's just for that love rather than the material. It's for that quality time rather than somebody always on the go. It's you're gonna want for something, and sooner or later they run into that, and then all that energy is put into the wrong person per se, because you were looking at the tangible, you were looking at what they had on the outside, but not really focusing on what they had on the inside. So yes, money may have attracted that type of female. I can speak for myself in saying that I don't really look at that. I do look at him having a stable job. Like, if you job hopping, we got to figure that thing out. Like, find your passion, find your goal, find what you're gonna be set in, and be secure in your finances. And you ain't gotta make the 6 figures. No, we rocking with whatever we bring it to the table, because that's what we're gonna grow on, to support the family. So I personally don't look at that. So if I was to see it from that perspective of that type of female, then that's probably what I would say. What she's exposed to, and just the experience and what she's entertained by. Maurisa, I don't know if you had a question or wanted to answer anything to that.
Yeah, so just really quick, that hasn't been my experience. I have friends and associates who are attracted to the quote unquote the bad boy, but I've never been attracted to them. I've always dated what would be considered nerds. My ex-husband was a nerd. Like, we met at church. He was my first love. So I think everyone has a different background. But what I will say is, he mentioned this earlier, and it's something I had to address while going through therapy before studying to become a counselor. You definitely are what you attract. Mm-hmm. I don't like the wording of that, but if you're at a point where you feel like you're attracting people who aren't where you see yourself, then that's a point where you should start working more inward, because the right person then will come to you. So, for example, I kept attracting people who had not gone through counseling and needed healing prior to me going to counseling. And then once I went through counseling, then I could recognize those things. Oh, okay, this is an inward thing. I think that sometimes we say we want things and we're not necessarily ready for them. So I would change where I'm shopping for my person at. You know, if I'm seeing that the crowd in here is ran through and you know, they have these types of attitudes, whatever. Good women are out here and they do exist. I know a few, I am one. So but we're not at the club. You know, we not at the club. We at church on Sundays, or stuff like that. So that's my opinion on that.
Yeah. And not looking for that other person to be your dumping grounds. I know we are in transition in different things in different parts in our lives, but to not look at that person as our dumping ground. I know we had introduced this whole topic as the barriers against the relationships, but if I could think of different things that are in sight as we see them as barriers, is that some of them have locks on them, some of them don't, some of them are built to protect, some are built to just keep others away or whatever it is. And if we're using those things to keep people away or to keep certain things out of our lives, then we should hold to that, because if we feel like it's not bringing that positive energy, as you all keep speaking on, then we just don't need to tamper with it. Because if we tamper with it, then sooner or later it's going to get on us and it's going to affect us, and it'll breathe through us and even our children, because they are watching the same way we were watching our parents and how they raised us and what their relationship life was like. They're watching us, I believe, and they may be taking mental notes, they may speak on it, but it's just in what we model before them.